Quinnen gosh darn Williams just got the bag, baby, and we got plenty to talk about with a special guest. Let's roll! Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rodgers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Sweet Lord have mercy! Quinnen Williams just got the bag, baby! Wowza! We couldn't have timed this interview better even if we tried to. Quinnen Williams, Hard Knocks, all the Jets all over the place. Well, let's waste no time. We got to bring him in the friggin' building. Eric gosh darn Allen, EA, Jets 360 Productions, and all the wonderful work he does for the New York gosh darn Jets, baby. Eric Allen on the show. What's up, EA?
Paul, thank you so much for having me on, man. I love your enthusiasm. Jets fans got to be just like you today. Jets locking up, reportedly, Quinnen Williams to a multi-year deal that's going to keep him here with the green and white for the long term.
And with what you just said, he just reset the markers by every category, reportedly, of course, 96 total million. That trumps C.J. Mosley, who held all of those pivot points for the New York Jets in franchise history. Total value, guarantees. I mean, average per year. I mean, boom, shakalaka. Quinnen Williams is here, and thankfully, EA, no Roscoe Diner action. The Jets have locked in their best player. No drama to be had. From that standpoint, we're going to training camp with a number one guy. He's coming back. That's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this guy's a foundational piece of a defense that took a massive step forward last season. The other thing, Paul, that really stands out to me, he's 4 years into his NFL career. He's 24 years old. This is not even a finished product. Of course, last year, first team All-Pro, 2022 team MVP. Defensive menace on the interior, 12 sacks, and the Jets have an embarrassment of riches up front along that defensive line. He helps everybody out. The pieces are going to be a little bit different next to him next season at defensive tackle. But the Jets, I think, are really poised to take another step forward because I think with another guy we're going to talk about here later, I'm sure, Aaron Rodgers, I think the Jets are going to have more opportunities to be teeing off on opposing quarterbacks late in games.
And to your point, the Jets aren't paying him for what he did in the past, which, by the way, is fantastic. Quinnen, first-team All-Pro, Pro Bowl nomination, the 12 sacks, all that was great. But to what you just said, I remember when the Jets drafted Michael Clemens last year, we went, let me check the doohickey here. Oh, wait, this young man is 24, 25 years old at the time. Quinnen, who spent 4 years, almost all the way through his rookie contract, had also been 24 heading on to 25. So it's absolutely wild because I don't think this is crazy to say, I think there's more to be had here. Quinnen's about to be entering his prime here. I mean, more to have.
No, I agree with that. And he's in such a good frame of mind. How cool is it that he's going to be able to do this with his brother, his older brother, Quincy Williams, who we thought before free agency, hey, maybe the older Williams tests the market and he finds a new home after finding a home here with the Jets. But Joe Douglas not only signed Quinnen Williams prior to training camp, he got Quincy done. And Quincy is an emerging player in this defensive system as well. But listen, this guy, 24 years old. It's unbelievable. Again, he can continue to develop, and he's got that continuity of being in that defensive system under Jeff Ulbrich, defensive line coach Aaron White-Cotton, and he loves it here. And the other thing about Quinnen, and I think kind of goes under the radar with him, is that team MVP means a lot, okay?
Mhm.
It was voted on by his teammates. The other thing, that he stepped up in the leadership category, and I think you're going to continue to see him step up as a leader, not only this year, but in years to come.
I love the family affair. Quinnen's here. Quincy, I'm now looking for a third Quinnen brother. Let's bring him on the team, too. We need to keep adding all that wonderful talent that's on that side of the ball. But let's get to it. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. And, EA, you've been with the Jets for a long friggin' time. You were here the last time, quite frankly, both Brett Favre was hopping over, and then also Hard Knocks was here. So let's just go with the Aaron Rodgers experience as one of the guys that was here for the Brett Favre experience. How has it been like having Aaron Rodgers in the building? Because Jet fans everywhere are pinching themselves because I'm not sure it's quite hit.
Well, it's really something else. You mentioned Favre, and there's three differences that I tell people about Rodgers and Favre, just in terms of the Jets. Number one is timing. Favre was traded to the Jets in August. Rodgers was traded to the Jets in April. So he has a full offseason under his belt. Number two is Favre liked this time here, no doubt about it. But his number one pick that year in 08 probably would have been Minnesota or Tampa Bay because he wanted to go head-to-head with Green Bay right away. Aaron Rodgers made it clear on the Pat McAfee show that he wanted to be a New York Jet from the get-go. The third part might be most important out of all of it is that Favre comes here in August. He meets with offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer. They basically have to make up an offense on the fly. Now, that did work. This team was 8-3 after going in. There was a shellacking in Tennessee, and that Favre got hurt late in the year, and then things fell apart. But Aaron Rodgers comes here, and he reunites with Nathaniel Hackett. And again, something Bart Scott and I were talking about, Bart brought up as soon as the trade was finalized was, listen, this is a guy that's not too far removed from being a MVP. He was MVP in 2020, 2021, 22. He still completed 65% of his passes, still threw for 24 touchdowns, had 12 interceptions, and by his standards, that was not a good year despite playing with a multitude of injuries. Here's the thing. So you're getting a player coach, in my mind. You're getting a player coach because he knows the system inside and out, and he was here throughout the spring quizzing these guys inside the meeting rooms. To a man, everybody would say that, hey, listen, you had to be on it because Aaron's asking you, what are you seeing on this play in terms of alignment? This is what I want to do in terms of adjustment. This is what I'm seeing here. So he's going to raise the standard of everybody around him.
Well, let's get into it because you mentioned it. Brett Favre getting traded there in August. The Jets start 8-3. There was a 6-touchdown game against the Arizona Cardinals in that mix, taking out the 10-0 Tennessee Titans. Like, there was a lot of good. And to your point, he came in August. So Aaron Rodgers coming in April. Is there a tangible thing you can point to that many months will have this kind of impact? Like, how does that translate ultimately, having more time to prepare and obviously some of the familiarity both with players and personnel?
Well, it's huge. It's huge because, again, you're introducing a new system, but I think Garrett Wilson actually talked about it recently. It's not it has new nuances, right? But it's from the same family of offenses. And then it's not only Rodgers. It's you bring in Alan Lazard. It's not only Lazard, but you have Randall Cobb. It's not only Randall Cobb, you got Billy Turner. I mean, there's a lot of guys where it makes a lot of sense on different levels where these guys can play football, they can be productive, but also they can help teach the system. I'm going to date myself here again, Paul, because he said I've been here forever. I go back to Rex Ryan's first year, 2009. What was so key about, okay, had a very good roster in place, no doubt about it. Mike Tannenbaum, Eric Mangini did a great job of setting that up, but he had to bring in a couple pieces, and most notably defensively, that was Bart Scott and Jim Leonard. And those guys helped implement those systems. I mean, this is very unique because we're talking about, okay, Aaron Rodgers coming here, what kind of success will he have in year one? People talk about Tom Brady. Well, he went to Tampa, and of course, him and Bruce Arians had to come together, and he put up monster numbers, but that took a little bit of time. Rodgers comes in here, it's everybody else catching up to him, and I think that's the advantage. And these guys, again, Alan Lazard, when he says that Nathaniel Hackett's the best teacher that he's ever had, really stands out to me. And Hackett's had success with different quarterbacks throughout his time calling shots as an offensive play caller in the National Football League. Remember, Jacksonville went to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles playing quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they were that close to winning it, quite frankly, if the gosh darn New England Patriots didn't do Patriot things and somehow found a way to make that happen. Again, we have Eric Allen here on the show of the friggin' New York Jets, baby. And I'm going to be honest, EA, I had the same reaction you did. You and Ethan Greenberg, Syracuse alum, proud locally around here. You guys are doing the offensive depth chart chat. And I remember Ethan going, okay, here are the numbers I want to throw at you. The two records, which, of course, is Joe Namath, Broadway Joe, baby, 4,007, and then the 31 touchdowns to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ethan asks you, hey, what do you think of those numbers? Could that be a floor, or am I being a little, over the top here? And you scoffed, and so did I. Went, it's Aaron Rodgers, baby. Those aren't is that too lofty for Aaron Rodgers? I just have to tell you, EA, I appreciated that. I appreciate the scoffing, the brushing aside of Ethan Greenberg's nonsense over there. Great work, I just have to say.
I just think when you're talking about Rodgers, even at 39, and I know he's going to turn 40 in December, if he plays 17 games, if he plays 16 games, those numbers are quite attainable. And again, we go back to the video game numbers that he put up in Green Bay in 20 and 21. I'm not saying there are not going to be bumps along the way. There will be. It's a long season. And a lot of these pieces are learning from each other. But Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest players to ever have played this game.
Yes.
Not just quarterbacks, greatest players. And if you look at his history, he is a guy who is going to come here with, yes, there's always a fire burning. There's always a fire burning. And he is intent on becoming a champion once again after a great 18-year run in Green Bay.
Come on, that's revving the engine of Jet fans everywhere. That trophy looking a little lonely, throwing that bluster on. Again, it is Rex Ryan-esque. I'm not kissing Belichick's rings. We're like, yeah, baby. That's what we're talking about. We've been hidden in this cave for a while, so finally we're bursting out here. Let me ask you, the other reported news this week, EA, is that the Jets were selected for Hard Knocks. What was your initial reaction to that?
No surprise from a league perspective, because who else would you rather want on Hard Knocks as far as the teams that were up for it? With that being said, from someone who works here, I would like to point out that, and you know this, Boy Green, the people put the documentary series together here at One Jets Drive. One Jets Drive will continue throughout training camp. It's going to air Monday nights, and it's going to be better than ever. Talk about setting a standard. These guys, these production guys here at One Jets Drive continue to do that. And the best is yet to come. In fact, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, I know you watched this last night, Paul, but they had a little promo for the series coming up in training camp, and the fellas are out with Aaron Rodgers right now in Tahoe. So how about that? But as far as from a national perspective, and those guys are going to continue to get their love and continue to tell the story like none other. But Hard Knocks has been a great product over the years. The Jets' appearance on Hard Knocks, maybe I'm biased, probably in 2010. I think you'd ask a lot of people out there, maybe it was the best Hard Knocks ever. The storylines from a Jets perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And then you add Aaron Rodgers into the equation. I get it from the league seeing it. The other thing I would say is that I think this organization is in a very good place. So, hey, people want to highlight it. That's great. That's great because I think the Jets have a lot of things to be proud of. But right now, it's a hungry fan base. It's a hungry football department, and it's a hungry locker room. And these guys know what's at stake, and they're going to keep their eyes on the prize. And that means, hey, getting it done each and every day. And I just think it's more eyes who are going to see the Jets and their story develop. So it's cool.
Yeah, you mentioned One Jets Drive ain't going nowhere, and Monday nights. Interesting. That was quite a choice there, EA, perhaps.
Hey, listen, I don't talk about when this thing's going out. I just hear the news myself. I see it's going to be dropped on Monday nights. Hey, listen, Mondays is always good for football. Remember, the Jets are opening up the season on a Monday night.
Very fitting. Very fitting. I love it, EA. As we're talking here on the show, let me ask you this. We've had a couple of players on throughout the offseason. Me and Tyler Conklin were talking about this. We were saying if Hard Knocks comes, like, who could be the stars of the show? And the name I threw out there, and then Tyler Conklin went, oh, yeah, that's going to be Ron Middleton. I said he's going to be like the secret star. I don't think a lot of NFL people know, but he's going to kind of pop. He's going to have those one-liners ready to go. EA, you've been doing a lot of great work this offseason. The entire team, quite frankly, has. Obviously, the official Jets podcast, you've been interviewing a lot of people. Is there a name in the back of your head, either someone you've spoken to or you just know on the team, that you believe Hard Knocks is almost going to unlock, and the rest of the people and the rest of the NFL are going to be like, whoa, this guy is either a star, they got a good personality, or a great story, what have you. Do you have any idea who that's going to be this year, do you think?
Oh, that's interesting. To your point, this building is full of so many intriguing personalities that I think you can go in any number of directions. You mentioned Ron Middleton before. Who doesn't love Ron Middleton? I really enjoyed my visit as far as the official Jets podcast is concerned. And Ron and I have spent a lot of time together in the past. So no surprises there. But Tony Oden, he's such such an impressive dude, and 1JD has highlighted him in the past. And as far as the coaching staff is concerned, there's so many guys who bring it as far as energy and intellect and storytelling. And then from a player perspective, I think the Jets are recognized throughout the league as having one of the finer young rosters in the National Football League. Now you're bringing in the first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback into the mix. But tell you what, you're talking about an offensive rookie of the year entering year 2 in Garrett Wilson, and Sauce Gardner entering year 2 after being named defensive rookie of the year. Those guys are magnetic personalities. How about Breece Hall after what he did in year 1, and then he's coming back off the ACL injury, registered 22 miles per hour on that GPS already. So he's already got the straight line speed, and everybody's been so encouraged by his rehab and his work ethic. Elijah Vera Tucker, he's got a fascinating backstory. One of the most versatile young linemen in the league, and such a cool upbringing himself. CJ Mosley, a guy who appeared in a couple playoffs with the Ravens, and he came here with a lot of expectations, and the road was a little bit bumpy for CJ. If you think about it, he had a historic performance in that opener against the Buffalo Bills a few years back, and then he goes down with the injury, then COVID hits, and I think a lot of people from afar said, well, what is CJ Mosley? Well, CJ Mosley has reminded the world the last couple years of what he's made of, and he's the heartbeat of that defense. The story of DJ Reed. I mean, yes, obviously he made a name for himself after coming in with Robert Saleh in San Francisco and then kind of having that breakthrough in Seattle. But I don't know from a national perspective if people realize just how good of a player DJ Reed was. But how about his backstory, what he's come from? You could go up and down the list. I mean, CJ Uzama is a guy who's got so many things going off the field. You visited with Tyler Conklin here earlier this offseason. He's you go up and down this roster. There are so many guys who not only good players, not only talented dudes, but guys who bring it as far as the stories are concerned.
Yeah, I just have to say, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tony Oden. I don't know how many more you're going to have. This guy seems destined to be an NFL head coach someday, and I'm trying to tamper it down. Like, no, you people don't know what you're talking about, because I'm selfishly trying to keep him here as long as possible. But I just feel like it's almost the inevitable with a guy like Tony Oden. He seems to check all the boxes. EA
Man, he's got it. He's got it. You know, and you've been around people doing this as long as you have as well. Well, just he has the connection with the players. He understands the game. The relatability factor is so huge. And he can bring the best out of people. And Robert Saleh's got a really good staff. He is a really good staff. And just consider what this group has done. There's been changes along the way, of course, but they flipped that script a few years ago and said, we're going to embrace the youth movement. Then we saw them take that step in year 2 where playoffs was within the reach, but they just couldn't latch on and hang on. But now it's time for the next step, and I think they're embracing that right here.
EA, what is expected capacity? You have Aaron Rodgers, Hard Knocks, and all the hype that was already around the team in terms of the roster. What's the attendance anticipated for you guys over in Jets land for training camp?
Well, tickets are available next week, right? July 17th, I think, for those first couple open practices will be available on the website. Season ticket holders will have the first crack at it. Listen, the bottom line, Paul, you know what it's going to be like here at Florida Park. It's going to be packed to the rafters. Every day is going to be full capacity. It's such a fascinating training camp because the Jets going to be in a Hall of Fame game against Cleveland Browns, one of the first 2 teams to report in the National Football League this year. And I think it kind of breaks up nice because it's a long camp. If you think about, you're reporting July 18th, your first game is until September 11th. So it is a long, it feels like a long way away. But with that being said, I like what Saleh's done here because after that Hall of Fame game, you come back and you're here a couple days, and then you're back on the road. And you're in Carolina, South Carolina. You'll be practicing with the Panthers for a couple days. You play there. Then you come back, get a day off. You start practicing with the former Jets head coach, Todd Bowles, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You play there. And then that precedes that final game with the Giants. And you get a little bit of a break. And then before you know it, the regular season will be here. But listen, bottom line, this is perhaps the most anticipated Jets training camp since I've been here. This is my 23rd season. Now, can you compare it to 09 and 10? Yeah, but it's a little different because this is your base, right? And the people at Cortland were unbelievable. And that was always cool to go away. So you had different folks coming from different areas and things like this. It feels different because this is your home base. Everybody knows where you're at. And again, I go back to Favre 08. That trade took place in August. We had a few training camp practices, well, more than a few, where I remember along that fence line at Hofstra back at Eubank Hall. I mean, rows and rows and rows. I remember Nick Mangold snapping to Brett Favre and being literally nervous because here's a guy that he had watched when he was growing up, and he couldn't believe he was in that situation. Hey, maybe you're going to hear some common refrain from maybe like a Joe Tippmann this year as he's snapping the ball to Aaron Rodgers. But I think there's going to be electricity every day the Jets are out there on the football field, and that includes game day, and that's why the NFL this year rewarded the Jets, putting them in primetime positions so many times.
All right, let's highlight a few players before we get you out of here, EA. You've been adamant. I mean, you may be the most adamant guy. You may, I don't know, under your byline, I must have did you a disservice. Leader of the Michael Carter fan club, the president, probably, quite frankly. You've been telling everybody, no matter what show you're on, whether it's at the Combine or different interviews, like people are not talking enough about Michael Carter. Why have you championed this as one of your big things here? You've been pounding the table about this, young man.
Which one, Paul?
Oh, I did that to myself. Michael Carter. Well, actually, quite frankly, both are not getting enough love. That's fair enough. But Michael Carter, the running back in particular, is a guy that you've been really pounding the table for.
Well, because I was in Arizona at league meetings, and Robert Saleh was asked directly about Zeke Elliott, right?
Yep,
and
remember.
Said, I love our running back room. And one of the things that he followed up with was that he believes that Michael Carter will be in line for a bounce-back year. The other thing about Carter was he was so impressive his rookie season. I don't think his talent has changed, okay? The other thing about when you're talking about Carter, I love what he brings to the table from the yards after contact, because so much in the National Football League is creating things on your own, maybe when a defense is onto you, okay? And he can catch it out of the backfield. So I know a lot of people kind of are sleeping on Michael Carter. The other thing to consider here is the Breece Hall dynamic, because the Jets, while he is well ahead of schedule on the rehab, you have to take a cautious approach because you want to get the best out of Breece Hall. Now, Dalvin Cook, I know that name has been out there. We'll have to see what happens, where he lands. Guy's been awfully productive throughout his career, especially the past 4 seasons with the Vikings. I just think that we have not heard the last from Michael Carter. That's why I truly feel that way.
Well, you brought up Dalvin Cook. I mean, how can I not take the bait when you just lay it out there? Well, what do you think of it? I know that we're waiting to see kind of what happens there, but man, a tantalizing possibility of adding a player of that magnitude who rarely in July is available at 27 years of age. It seems like almost too tempting of an opportunity to pass up if you're the Jets.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? Because he is a threat out of the backfield, not only just running the ball, but catching it out of the backfield. Now, numbers-wise, too, you look at his production. You can't argue against the production. The numbers weren't quite there last year in terms of maybe yards per reception. And I guess you'd have to go back and look at the film and say, well, this is the reason why. But Dalvin Cook, the thing that caught my eye when Minnesota released him was, okay, here's a guy that they straight up said this is a salary cap casualty. That's the reason we're releasing him. And the other thing is, for as many good guys the Jets have in their locker room, which they do, like Cook kind of fits the mold in terms of what he's done off the field in the community, because I guess he was a staple in the community in Minnesota as well. But when you're looking at guys like Cook and I'm not talking about Hopkins with the Jets. I'm just saying DeAndre Hopkins. It's just, what are those guys looking at? Are they looking at final numbers? As far as what I can make this year? Are they looking at the ring? Is it a combination of both? It's interesting because those guys both have been highly productive in the National Football League, and also what kind of system is going to be the right fit for them. But listen, Dalvin Cook is a very good player, and whoever gets him, he's going to produce next season. That's going to happen. But it's been fascinating from my lens, just looking at it. People talk about Miami. Now you start hearing about New England. Early on, you heard about him possibly joining his brother in Buffalo, and then the Jets as well. So, listen, as far as Saleh was clear about that too, about leaving no stones unturned as far as Cook is concerned. So we'll have to see how that all unfolds.
Yeah, I'll package these two together. Sauce and Garrett were both offensive and defensive rookie of the year. It's only the third time that's ever happened in NFL history. from everything you've been able to gather, both from what we've seen and what we haven't seen, again, you having the eye inside the building that we don't, how are they going to handle this? Because they've just gotten so much praise, so much love, so much everything thrown in their direction. How will they respond? Because I got to imagine it's very hard for a young man to get all that hype, and then you think you're all that in a bag of potato chips and kind of setting up for what it is. How do you think they're going to handle all that extra hype, spotlight, and everything else?
I think they're going to be better. I think what you saw from Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner in year one is just a start. I think these guys have special mindsets. Physically, everybody knows they're gifted. But in terms of their approaches, they are special. They are different breeds. Garrett Wilson, I mean, just thinking about pairing him up with Aaron Rodgers. And speaking of Rodgers, remember what Rodgers said that last day OTAs when he spoke to the media. He said potentially this team could have the number one wide receiver in the National Football League and the number one cornerback in the National Football League. They are both just getting started. Sauce Gardner is going to get better in year two, and so is Garrett Wilson. Now, teams are going to attack them differently, but they also have a book now themselves that I just played you last year. I know the way you're going to release on me. You're going to try a release if you're Sauce. I know the way you're going to try to press me if I'm Garrett. There are just certain things that they've picked up in terms of their tools. But what separates both of those cats is they want to be great, and they're going to do anything to raise it up another level. So when we talk about Aaron Rodgers' standard, these guys, that's music to their ears. They're going to do anything they can to take it to the next level. You know, Sauce Gardner is going to have more than 2 interceptions this season. We know that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Even if he gets the Revis treatment. And I know you had fun with this one, but I really think Garrett pairing up with Aaron Rodgers, he's going to put up some big numbers.
He's going to put up some numbers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. EA, as we have you on here just for a few more minutes. Let me go to Mekhi Becton. That interview you did, I know you guys did a lot of content while they were all there, and then you guys have been kind of spreading it out throughout the summer. You were standing right next to Mekhi Becton, and I mean, you almost gave him a head to toe. You kind of went, my, oh my, you've had a physical transformation, Mr. Mekhi Becton. You were talking to him. How was it like standing next to him? How different is he? Sometimes it's hard for us fans not to see it because we're not there at every OTA practice or what have you. From the Becton we saw a long time ago to the Becton you were interviewing and standing next to, I mean, how different, how stunning is that physical transformation he's undergone?
It's really something else. And I probably should have been standing on 6 apple boxes doing that interview, and I still would have been looking up to him, Paul. You have to credit him here. I don't care who you are, okay? You can question whatever you want. You have to credit him for putting his head down and transforming the body. You don't have to be an expert in anything to say this guy has transformed his body. And again, I go back to his rookie season, and he was so impressive. And we know about the injuries the past 2 years. He comes across as someone who is so focused and knowing that this is his time, that this is so important for him. And you got to, again, give him the credit for putting himself into position potentially for taking this and then changing the course of his career right now. And that was number one, because I know a lot of doubters would say, okay, he hasn't done anything the past 2 years. And I understand the doubts. But with that being said, Becton has transformed the body. I think this means a lot to him. He's put the work in. He's got a lot of work to do, and he knows that. So now let's see what happens.
I'm just going to say, I don't know if you saw this, but one of the responses in your interview with Mackay went viral, and some people took it in a negative way. I took it in a positive way. One of the things you'll remember he said to you, EA, is that he changed the people, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, at his metaphorical table, and he changed his trainers, nutritionists, and a bunch of things he listed to you. I looked at it and said, wow, for Mackay Becton in the middle of his NFL career to say, you know what, something's not working. I got to change it up. I got to do what I got to do. And then we saw what happened with the physical transformation. I credited Becton. I said, that's what you have to do to be able to stop a moving car and say, you know what, something's not right here. Other people were criticizing it. I thought that was kind of a point of a rallying cry, quite frankly, that it seems like Becton is trying to do everything in his power. Ultimately, the proof is in the pudding on the field, but he's doing everything in his power to put himself in the right position.
Yeah, listen, I don't think Mackay's trying to put anybody down. I didn't interpret it that way at all. Sometimes people make changes for whatever reason, and I know he was working with good people in the past. I know that for a fact. But with that being said, he needed to make internal changes. And listen, if that's going to put him in a different place, if that's going to ultimately lead him to something else that he has experienced of late, then hey, you got to change something, right? To your point, again, I will not, because I don't know anything about that as far as, okay, who's at the table? Which seat is he talking about? How many people are you talking about? I can't speak to that. Only Mackay knows that. But again, I think he's pointing at the individual when he says, I had to do changes. I had to change things up as far as what I was doing, and you see the body different. Now, we'll have to see what it looks like in the summer and when he gets on the field and what that ultimately leads to. But again, I think he knows how important everything is in front of him right now.
All right, final one, EA. Let's just say it. I know I can read your mind. It's one of my special superpowers. Just guarantee it on the show. We're winning the Super Bowl. We're winning the whole gosh darn thing, right, EA? You're getting a ring on your finger. We're winning it. You just want to guarantee it right now on the show? Just throw it out there into the universe, baby.
No way.
Come on, EA.
Listen, I love your enthusiasm. It's such a long season, and they're just at the start of it. I like what Saleh did say about the Jets potentially being one of those 6 to 8 teams who have the ability to win the Super Bowl. But, I mean, you have to take care of so many things. And Saleh's not a guy to put anything ahead of these guys.
Right.
He's going to tell them, hey, listen, it's day one. This is day one of installations, a training camp. And for you to compete for a playoff berth, to compete for a Super Bowl, you have so much work ahead of you. So, again, the Jets know this organizationally, haven't been to playoffs since 2010, but I guess that was the last time the Jets were on Hard Knocks, so I don't know if you're looking for any connects here. Maybe that bodes well for the future, but I'm just saying, like, this is a very talented team. But, Paul, you know this too. This is a very good conference. And this division's going to be awfully difficult 2023. The Bills have won it the past 3 years. They had won 10 straight games before they lost to Cincinnati. You got Miami, who thinks that they've improved, and it's going to be fascinating to see what they look like, especially on the defensive side of the ball for me when you're talking about Vic Fangio.
Of course.
And then New England might not be done here, and they're in the Hopkins sweepstakes, but they are always difficult. The Jets have lost 14 consecutive games to the Patriots in the regular season. I mean,
terrible.
The bottom line is, and then you look at the schedule, and they can't do that downstairs, but I can say that. The Bills Monday night, that's going to be a competitive game. You're going to Dallas on a short week. Dallas is going to be a tough team. You're coming home. You got the aforementioned Patriots. Then week 4, you got Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. Guys got a couple rings on their hands. Week 5, you go to Denver. Sean Payton, still one of the, he'll show people that and that roster's not bad. Week 6, You got Philadelphia coming to town.
Yeah.
One of the most complete rosters in the league. You can make the argument that they're the best on the
Sure.
offensive, defensive lines. So, again, but do the Jets have a chance to do some serious things this year? Should they be viewed as someone who should be expected to be a contender? I fully expect the Jets to be a contender this year.
All right. Well, EA, cheers. I'll give you the Ferris Bueller line. Make sure you smell the roses every once in a while. You might miss it. This season's going to be a roller coaster, exciting from training camp all the way to the very end, hopefully in February. Wink. But EA, thanks for carving out the time, brother. This has been tremendous. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. This is great.
All right. There he is, Eric Allen from the New York Jets. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next